everybody, welcome back to another episode of 5-Minute Gaming News, the show that may or may not be 5 minutes. Today in the news, Unity, the company that single-handedly wrecked its reputation in the games industry, has finally announced it's willing to commit to making some changes. According to Games Chronicle, firstly, Unity confirmed it will no longer be charging per install fees for those using Unity Personal or Plus plans. More importantly, the fees will no longer apply to existing games. Only those created or upgraded to the long-term support LTS version releasing in 2024 or later, currently referred to as the 2023 LTS, will be impacted, wrote Unity's Mark Whitten. For those games, the fee is now only applicable after a game has crossed two thresholds: $1 million USD in gross revenue, trailing 12 months, and 1 million initial engagements. So, yes, there have been some significant changes to the runtime fee policy and what Unity intends to do, but they're not great, huge changes. They still have the policy in place. If you've already released a game, then I guess you're fine, but any future Unity games will be subject to this. And the problem is, in the gaming space, Unity didn't just shoot itself in the foot, it blew off its legs and then jumped into a grinder and then crawled out of the grinder and then melted itself like T100. It makes no sense why anyone would then be like, well, you know what? Moving forward, I want to make my game with Unity. I feel like that makes a lot of sense, especially since I know now that if I'm successful in making my game, that Unity is just going to take a bunch of money from me. There's a bunch of other places you could go then. But that wasn't the only bit of information the company published. I want to start with this. I am sorry, reads a letter from Unity Create head Mark Whitten. We should have spoken with more of you, and we should have incorporated more of your feedback before announcing our new runtime fee policy. Our goal with this policy is to ensure that we can continue to support you today and tomorrow and keep deeply investing in our game engine. Cool. All right, well, thanks for that. Nice to know you're sorry. Doesn't change anything, really, about what they did, about how they're acting, about how they're still pretty much just doubling down on the whole idea, even though it's not going to affect anyone in the past, which was a scummy thing to even think about anyway. That's like when someone hurts you really bad, says they're sorry, and it's like, yeah, all right, I mean, I'm a good person, so I'll accept your apology, but I'm not going to deal with you anymore. And I feel like that is the same thing here. Yeah, all right, say you're sorry. I don't think it affects this in any way. It's way too late. Anyone who would have even considered using Unity at this point is just moving on, and for good reason. But hey, congrats to all those other game engines that'll get a lot more visibility because of this. I hope it works out for the best. In other news, it looks like we may have confirmation that we will in fact get a third Star Wars Survivor, Fallen Order, whatever, Jedi game from Respawn. This, of course, thanks to a recent Comic-Con panel with my favorite red-headed mullet-wearing Jedi, Cal Kestis, Cameron Monaghan. During a panel at Ocala Comic-Con, Monaghan said, "We're working hard on a third, and we're in the process of doing that right now. That's a big undertaking, and there have been some conversations so far, but hopefully when all things are said and done, we'll be able to go in and make something really cool." And of course, what's interesting and newsworthy about this, aside from Cal's mullet, which will always be newsworthy, this panel happened just days after Stig Asmussen's departure from EA was announced. Asmussen was the director of Fallen Order and Survivor, and has expressed his interest in making a third game. So the question becomes, now without Asmussen there, who is going to helm the ship? Who's going to be the one to lead the Death Star trench run? You know what I mean? Clearly, a third game is something they're talking about, but it doesn't appear like anything's really coming together yet. As you could tell from what Cameron was saying, it was a lot of like, we're thinking, we're working, but like nothing's happening quite yet. It's one of those pre-production phases. I've definitely been there where like ideas are floating and things are happening, but at the same time, nothing feels like it's happening. That's probably where they're at. And I would imagine that without someone to lead this whole thing, it'll be a while before we see the next one. But speaking of games you will see a lot sooner, tomorrow Cyberpunk 2077's highly anticipated expansion finally hits consoles and PCs everywhere. In this new story, players head to Dogtown in order to help the new United States of America president on a spy thriller mission that even pairs you up with Idris Elba, aka Solomon Reed. Pair this with Cyberpunk 2077's latest massive update and gameplay refresh, and I'm gonna let you know it is awesome. The game was always good, but now it's living up to its true potential, and there's a ton of new content to explore. Definitely check it out. Also on Tuesday, for an entirely different feel, prepare to get your supernatural neo-noir on in El Paso Elsewhere. In this third-person shooter, players must take down werewolves, vampires, and more throughout a reality-shifting motel located in, you guessed it, El Paso, Texas. Look, when a game promises more slow-motion dives than you think would be humanly possible to fit into a single video game on their Steam page, my attention is definitely piqued. And then, Annapurna Interactive's Cocoon makes its debut on Friday. From the gameplay designer mind behind Inside and Limbo, Cocoon is another creative take on the puzzle-solving genre, where you hop in and out of world-containing orbs in order to solve puzzles by means of recursion. I always appreciate a creative take on a well-known genre, and it's easy to see how Cocoon became one of the most anticipated games to come out of Summer Game Fest. And before we go, just wanted to give a shout out to the cast of Final Fantasy 16 for hanging out with me yesterday. It was a ton of fun. We streamed for like 5.5 hours and signed a bunch of stuff and talked to the community. It was a blast. A lot of good goofs came from that, and a lot of wearing bathrobes and head towels. It was a thing. But go check that out. It's over on Twitch. And that is it for me. See y'all tomorrow for another episode of 5 Minute Gaming News.